Derivative Art Journal page, when I was 9. Have you read any good books recently? Reading. Reading takes me back to those childhood trips to the library and to story times when someone, most likely a mother, opened up worlds of adventure and imagination just by reading you a story. While you listened, or sometimes read on your own, your mind would put together pictures of what was happening in that story. Old yellow dogs, pirates, castles, cities, ballerinas, faraway lands. Imagination can see everything perfectly. As I was reading an easy read novel this week, I thought of all those imaginative times. And, well, my eyes, as I read, started catching phrases and pictures that would be fun to art journal. The book is a thrift store find that I'm reading now, so why not turn it into an art journal? A derivative art journal. Playing off of those words and phrases. I was so excited to get started on the very first layout that I still have half of a book to finish reading. I will be reading a slightly paint-splattered book now. Come, sit down and listen and watch. Imagine with me. Reading inspires me. I am off on another art journal journey. At Christmas time, I like to read a lot of relaxing stories and a lot of books that are quick reads, and that's what this one is. So I am off, yes, on another art journal journey. And I'm starting this in Christmas of 2013, but I expect that this journey will expand over into 2014. I bought this book at the thrift store. I removed the paperback book jacket. I'm going to put that into my holiday planner and journal on the inside of the book jacket as a recording of one of my Christmas activities. But I got inspired by reading this. And what I'm going to do is what I'm going to call derivative art journaling. What really inspired me was when you read a book, you know how your imagination goes off into, it forms its own pictures. That's one of the great things about childhood. If you have memories of your parents reading to you, you could just see everything happening in your own mind. I went ahead and painted out the spine of the cover, because what this book is about is not as important, and I don't want to get into copyright violations. So I also have already pre-gessoed my pages. Not gessoed them, I painted them, and these pages are pretty dark. I used black gesso mixed with this red ruby metallic. I am only about halfway through reading this book, but I cannot wait to complete my reading before I start my art journaling. All my bright ideas will have escaped me and I'll be on to the next project. What I'm doing is what they call derivative art journaling or derivative art. There's another type of derivative art too, where you scribble on a page or you bring items out of the page over items that are already on the page. But what I am doing is highlighting a phrase that caught my attention, and I'm going to art journal about that phrase. So I've already have painted my background. This background will change. It's more of what I call an undercoat. So, and I imagine, I've read this far in the book already, and I imagine that I will need to glue some of these pages together because the paper is quite thin. But the first thing I'm going to do here for you is use some glazing medium and cover this phrase, which, I was not that careful about the wording and the painting around the wordings, but you can still read it, and I know what it says. But I don't want to paint on it anymore, so, oops, I always get too much. I am just going to glaze right over this phrase with my finger. And grab one of my tags over here and spread the rest of this glaze on one of my tags with my finger. The only thing I'm doing here is protecting these words in here so that I won't cover them up with paint or ink, and if I do, it can be easily removed. So let me grab a paper towel. So that's the very first thing that I wanted to do. Now I'm going to set this aside for a minute with my tag and let that dry while I tell you about some of the things. You know, I've been working in my box 19 art journal because I just have all sorts of scraps. I start out by sorting out elements that I want to use on the page. The story takes place at Christmas, so all the elements have a very Christmas color to them. I find this picture of this adorable little girl. I think I got her at a garage sale or an antique store, not quite sure. I add some red crimson to the base of the page to bring out more of the red color of Christmas. Of course, I'm just drying it off now so I can continue working on the page. Now, the girl gets a little rag doll for Christmas, so I'm tearing out of some flowered paper a little rag doll dress, border it with that red paint. And here I'm shaping the head of the rag doll and the hands and the feet, just as if her mother were sewing the little rag doll for the girl out of her sewing scraps. And the little girl, of course, is more than thrilled. She's getting a dolly for Christmas. What else could she ask for? The little doll's hair is made out of little fruit bag netting, and here I'm just snipping some glittery snowflakes from some scrap paper. Now use a white pen to trace around the shape of the doll so that I know where to glue down the pieces as I put them down, so they'll go right where I want them. I find that white ink will wipe off of the acrylic base very easy, so it does not ruin the page in the long run. Now, here I'm thinking that I'm going to attach this picture with my Mod Podge for paper, but all it really does is curl up the base of my picture. So I dry it all off, and then I use score tape on the back of the page, making sure that I get it right out to the very edge so that the edge won't curl up on me again. And that works. Here I'm just taking off the tape and I'm going to place the picture down on the page where I want it. Now I'm shaping the little pigtails, the little red pigtails of the doll, and cutting out some more snowflakes. The page is a very simple layout, but the smile on that little girl, the excitement of Christmas as she sees the little dolly that she's getting for Christmas, that just says it all. I'm just auditioning the elements on the page here, and I'm attaching down the snowflakes. By the way, that's Well-Bond glue in that glue bottle. And I also use the Well-Bond glue to glue down the little red-haired pigtails on the doll and the bangs. I find that I have to clip those bangs to the page until that glue dries, but it works. Now, I used the number 9 because the phrase says when I was 9. Now, I think the little girl in the photograph looks a little bit younger than 9 years of age, but her smile as she's looking over across the page at that little doll just says it all for me. And she could be 9 years old in our imagination. I'm drawing snowflakes, doodling snowflakes along the border like that. But you'll see later when I get out my Faber-Castell pen, I'm outlining, drawing a face on the doll. Here I get out my Faber-Castell pen and don't like that snowflake, and I erase it off, and I erase all the snowflakes on the border and border everything with my white biggie Faber-Castell pen, and that just really brings everything out on the page. Now I decide that I'm going to try some embossing powder. I get out silver and what I think is a red. It turns out to be more of a pink. You see here where I'm using the heat gun to emboss the pages. That silvery color just screams Christmas, Christmas layout. Now, on that number 9 there, I'm finding that the photograph itself has a very slick coating, and my base of my embossing that I'm using for my embossing fluid does not stick to that, so I have to use some sandpaper to rough up that number 9, and that works. And you see where I'm heating it, it turns to more of a pink than a red color, but that's okay too. Now I like the silver embossing so much on the left side that I decided to do it on the right side of the page. So I put a lot of silver around that little doll and around the phrase of the book. I'm not going to read you the phrase of the book. I left it on the page itself, but I do not want to get into copyright violations by reading it online on my YouTube video. This is very much a personal work of art. I won't be selling it or anything of that. So I figure the phrase "when I was 9" is derivative enough that it won't be a copyright violation. Use my black Biggie Faber-Castell just to bring everything, all the elements of the page out. Can you just see the excitement and the happiness on the face of that little girl when she finds out that she's getting her dolly for Christmas? Even though she's not quite 9 yet, in our imaginations, she's 9. Here I'm using some black gesso to border the page of the book, and that finishes up the page for me. When I was 9, I got a rag doll for Christmas. Okay, here it is. I just love her face. I'm pretty happy with it. Now I can go read a few more pages in my book and look back on this. I hope that you've enjoyed watching me create my very first page in my new derivative art journal. If you have, please subscribe to my channel. Of course, I plan to finish reading the book, and as I run across phrases and sentences that capture my imagination and form pictures in my mind, I plan to put those down on art journal pages in this book and create their very own story. I will see you on the next page.